Toastmasters and guests. Pusher parts, determination, grit, stick-to-itiveness. We all call it something different. For the next 5 to 7 minutes, I'll be summarizing 56 years. I was born to a loving mother and an alcoholic father. I think my father had a lot to do with my pusher part formation. They got divorced when I was 4 years old, and they remarried 6 months later. And then 6 months later, they divorced again. My father threatened my mother with her life if he didn't get my brother and me. She moved to Omaha, and for the next 14 years, I only saw her and my sister 2 weeks every summer. The first memory I have of my pusher part is when I was 14. My brother ran away. I was determined not to be stuck there alone, so I started mowing lawns and saved up enough money to buy a car. Whenever I graduated, I took a job installing elevators. About 4 years into that job, I realized that my back wasn't my strongest asset and started going to Houston Community College. After 4 years of night school, I quit my job. It was time to move forward. My pusher part had done its part. So at the age of 28, I transferred to Texas A&M as a junior and started taking classes. I knew I wanted to be an electrical engineer, but just taking classes wasn't enough. I became a member of the Student Engineers Council, I was president of the Electrical Engineering Honor Society, and I was voted most outstanding senior. I graduated with honors with a bachelor's in science in electrical engineering. I thought surely with my collegiate record I would get graduate funding, but the funding never came, and my pusher part wasn't going to let that injustice stand. So one day, I printed my resume, drove to Austin, and started knocking on professors' doors. Eventually, I found a fit. And that day, when I drove back to Austin, I had a full ride, $1,000 a month stipend, and an office on campus. I graduated with my Master's of Science in Electrical Engineering in 1995 and took a job with Motorola as a computer chip designer. My job was everything I had thought it would be. I earned several patents, gained the respect of my peers, and then the headache started. I didn't know what was going on, and eventually my doctor prescribed an MRI. After he saw the results, he made an appointment for me the next day with a neurosurgeon. I went in, and the results weren't good. There was a Lyme-sized tumor in my parietal lobe. And 4 days later, I was in the OR undergoing a 10-hour craniotomy. And after my craniotomy, it was time for treatment. I had to do 3 months of rehab, a year and a half of chemo, and brain radiation. The radiation was a daunting task. Every day for 7 weeks, I drove north for my 45-minute session and left a trail of tears on Mopac as I drove back to my office and pondered my life. Eventually, I got past that and continued to work. Little did I know, but the surgery had given me epilepsy, and the seizures started. I pushed through them as they came along and managed to do okay, and wondered if I was living on borrowed time. I got my answer on Christmas Eve of 2008. My sister walked in and found me wedged between the toilet and the tub, convulsing. That night, lying on the floor, my life changed forever, and my pusher part went offline. It didn't have much of a choice. There wasn't really much to work with because of the amount of brain damage the seizure had done. I needed it to be silent. I was hurt and needed to heal. 3 weeks after that, I went back to work, and to my surprise, I sat down at my desk and had no idea how to solve the problem I'd left there when I went on Christmas break. The damage was worse than I thought. Realizing I couldn't do engineering anymore, I made the agonizing decision to file a long-term disability claim with my company. The decrease in pay meant that I could no longer afford my house and had to sell it. So in a period of 6 months, I had lost my wife, lost my health, my job, and my house. It was a devastating blow, but I moved forward, always forward. Eventually my pusher part came back online, and I poured myself into exercise. I started doing triathlons, started cycling, started running. But one day when I was training for a bike ride, I realized I couldn't turn right. I didn't know what was going on, so I called my doctor and he prescribed another MRI. He called me and said there had been a significant change since the last MRI I had 6 months prior. My cancer was back, and I had to do it all over again. But this time, no radiation. I had to do 3 months of chemo, 3 months of rehab, another 1.5 years of chemo. But earlier in the year, I had signed up for the 3M half marathon, and my pusher part was not about to let me forget that. So while I was on chemo and while I was in rehab, I began training. And 3 months after my surgery, I ran that race, and a month after that, I ran the Austin half. My pusher part has quieted down a little bit. Now it does more nudging. And for the last 4 years, I've been taking classes at ACC. And in this past May, I graduated with an Associate of Arts in Creative Writing. I managed to turn that, they gave me an 8-month prognosis after my first surgery. And I've managed to turn that 8 months into 17 years. There's been a lot of lingering effects from my surgery, my seizures, and the chemo. I don't know where my left hand is unless I can see it. I lost my left peripheral vision. I lost my ability to know where I am relative to you and in the city. But most of all, I lost some of my working memory, which makes it very difficult to focus and multitask, thus no note cards. So you'll never see me as an evaluator. Having survived brain cancer twice has given me a unique perspective on life. And no, life doesn't suck and then you die. Life is beautiful. And growing old is not a bitch. I look forward to my birthday every year and celebrate having made it one more lap around the sun. I don't know what's next for me, but I do know that with my pusher part in my back pocket, I'm ready for whatever comes my way.
You know, despite all of the ins and outs and the ups and downs in the world, I've had the privilege of knowing quite a few people like John, and you, sir, keep us moving. Thank you. That was beautiful. Our next speaker is the dauntingly impressive and magnanimous for sharing with us, Jeanette, with her topic this evening, I Remember Steve. And she's going to be 8 to 10 minutes. It's Pathways Level 1. And Jeanette, if you'll come up here and regale us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. I stand up here tonight before you, and because we're friends, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, we're new friends. This is not my comfort zone, but I doubt any of you here actually likes to leave your comfort zone, that safe space that we create with what's familiar, what's routine, what we're confident doing. But to achieve my goal of being a better speaker, I'm going to stand up here anyway. Because to achieve anything of significance requires discomfort. It requires disruption. And I want you to think with me a minute. I want you to think about, have you ever set a goal and quit? Have you ever set a goal that you didn't start? Or maybe you started and it became uncomfortable, so you gave up on it. But I bet every one of you can think of a time or times when you set a goal and you crushed it like a Diet Coke can. I mean, you refused to give up, and you had setbacks and you had challenges, and maybe you had people saying, it's too hard. Give up. But have you ever thought about what's the difference? What's the difference between a goal that never gets off the ground and one that you wrestle to the ground like a prize fighter? If you agree with me that you must leave your comfort zone, then the question really is, what forces you out? What forces you out and what keeps you out? Logic? No. Good intentions? A beautiful plan? Like Courtney, I'm a fan of a good plan. I think those are needed for big goals, but alone, it's not going to be enough to keep you going, to keep pushing you out when you want to run back to your comfort zone. But I'm going to tell you what is. First, you have to be perfectly clear about what you want. Specifically, what do you want and why? And here's the key, the secret ingredient. What is the emotion? What is the feeling driving it? And I'll give you an example. Dirk, I bet you would like more money. I would like more money. I actually don't think I've ever met anyone that said, it would be terrible if I had more money. Absolutely awful. But that goal is vague. It's too vague to force you to take a second job, to take a third job. It's too vague to send you back to college in your 50s to get a degree if that's what you need to increase your income. But love for your children and wanting to give them the best education money can buy, or fear of losing your house, filing bankruptcy. Love and fear are powerful motivators that will force you out of that comfort zone. Now, when I'm staring down a big goal and I feel like quitting, and that happens to me a lot, I remember Steve, not that Steve,